Hello everyone. So today we're going to discuss a typical ego defense mechanism that INFJs better watch out for. And you're going to understand why I think that INFJs need to watch out for this particular ego defense mechanism, more so than INFPs, more so than INTPs, more so than most people. Okay? So this ego defense mechanism is known as intellectualization. Okay, intellectualization. It's a defense mechanism that I'm familiar with because I'm a trainee in analytic psychotherapy. Psychoanalysis and analytic psychotherapy have long been aware of this particular defense mechanism. Along with the plethora of other defense mechanisms that it has identified, and that a lot of people we all use to varying degrees, and each and every one of us has its own particular repertoire of mechanisms that they rely on. If you're not sort of leaning psychotic or borderline, most of your defense mechanisms will be called either neurotic or mature, so these are the two highest levels of maturity. And intellectualization is a defense mechanism that sort of belongs somewhere between neurotic and mature. That is to say that it's a defense mechanism that, and INFJs use that mechanism, like I said, but I'm going to explore it in more detail in relation to the INFJ in a second. The fact that it's somewhere between neurotic and mature in terms of its health, okay, means that sometimes intellectualization is very useful and it's important. We have ego defense mechanisms. You know that the activity of defense mechanisms is largely unconscious. We don't really control it. It's necessary for us to protect ourselves. We could not survive being consistently and constantly impinged upon by the external world or the internal world of our feelings. We need to control things. We need to limit the access that external things or deeply internal things have to our ego's presence of mind. Otherwise, we will not be able to function. So defense mechanisms are not just to be tolerated, they are to be promoted in many cases. But what needs to be defended against, if you like, or maybe this is not the right way to express it, but what we need to be careful towards is to pay attention to is whether we overuse certain defense mechanisms, in which case then they become maladaptive. Now the INFJ uses intellectualization because it has particular qualities. That particular defense has qualities that happen to be very useful to the INFJ, maybe a little bit too useful sometimes. So essentially, in the broadest possible terms, intellectualization is a defense mechanism whereby a particular emotion, right, is invested and addressed in its content, but separated from the affect that comes with the content. Because in the emotion, there is a content and there is a way it makes you feel. That's the affect. Intellectualization is a way of talking about an emotion, but as if it's like something to be observed, something to be talked about dispassionately and in a detached manner, to be analyzed, to be explored in depth often, but again without the affect, without the actual feeling that comes with it. Okay, that's when you intellectualize an emotion. And the reason why it's so prevalent among INFJs, if you pay attention, you'll observe it almost all of the time. Perhaps a bit less insecure INFJs, but you will still observe it there. And like I said before, it is often useful because we do need those defenses. Is that INFJs are at one and the same time. And this is due to their cognitive function stack, it's due to their particular kind of existential constitution and so forth. INFJs are very good at analyzing feelings. They're very good at discriminating between subtle nuances in feelings and emotions. They're very good at analyzing them. They're very good at intuiting and discerning them. They're not as good, due to being high F users, they're not as good at feeling them. When you feel an emotion, okay, the way you could describe the feeling of an emotion is to take subjective ownership for the emotion. You take subjective ownership. You say, this emotion is mine. I am the possessor and the owner of this emotion. So you take subjective ownership. It's a personal kind of relationship to the emotion. You make it your own, right? Now, FE is a function that obviously is a feeling function, but it has an impersonal prism. It has a universal prism. It tends to generalize across people rather than to particularize into individual singular people. So you see that there is a little bit of a disconnect here. There's a little bit of a discrepancy or a paradox between being particularly acute at identifying emotions, in fact, including one's own. Because sometimes people say, INFJs are really good at assessing, identifying emotional states in other people. That's what makes them so observant and sometimes influential with people. But they're not good at consulting their own emotions. They're not good at understanding their own emotions. Oh, let me tell you, INFJs are very good at understanding their emotions. They're not as good at feeling their emotions. And there's a crucial difference between understanding an emotion, which is about the content, what is the emotion is saying, what might be its causes, what might be in relationship to the other emotions, what might be its relationship to the particular individual's history, the particular kind of psychology, and so forth. There's a big difference between this, which is an intellectual exercise. Always keep in mind, this is an intellectual exercise. You can intellectualize emotion. That is to say that when you're dealing with emotions, you could be spending like 95% of your time interested in your emotions. That does not make you an emotionally, if you like, an emotionally embodied person, because you could be addressing these emotions purely from the point of view of your mental framework and not your emotive framework. And intellectualization is so tempting a mechanism, a defense mechanism for INFJs, because by definition, what you're not so good at doing, namely feeling your own emotions as your own and therefore taking subjective ownership for them, usually what's a little bit alien like that, because it's not what we're best at, is a bit scary. INFJs are fundamentally scared of feeling those emotions. And they defend against that fear by, well, in a sense, neutering them. That's to say that when you hear people say INFJs are so intuitive and so good at understanding emotions, and that's their business, they're so interested in that, the interest is not disinterested. The interest is not disinterested. INFJs are so good at it because they spend a lot of time doing it, and they spend a lot of time doing it because as long as you do it, you actually don't have to feel. You can just observe, you can just parse, you can just analyze. Okay? And so the question then becomes how to move from this over-reliance on intellectualization and toward more of a raw processing of the emotion. Okay? And perhaps this is something that we're going to address in another video. All right, so let me know in the comments what you thought, guys, and if you relate, if you are an INFJ or if you've observed INFJs, this is something that you've noticed. I think that intellectualization as a defense mechanism is crucial to understand an everyday INFJ's behavior and perhaps areas of improvement toward further individuation. Okay, and by the way, guys, if you're interested in INFJs, don't forget that I have written a book that came out last year, still doing very well. Check the reviews. It's called The Infinite Soul, INFJ Life in the Modern World, and it looks at how INFJs can find emotional, material, and spiritual nourishment and flourishing in the world today, despite the fact the world is often seen as hostile to many INFJs. And this book essentially argues that the more authentic you are to your NI vision and identity as an INFJ, the more you will flourish. You just need to know how to go about it. And this book tries to give you all the answers. Check it out, first link below. And also, its prequel is worth having a look at as well. A new look at the INFJ personality, The Ecstatic Soul. It has a lot of reviews on Amazon. Check them out. That might make you just want to get the book. It's the deepest investigation to this day, and maybe for another while, of the INFJ mind. What's it like to think like an INFJ? What's it like to be an INFJ? If you want to know more about this book is a must-read. It's you can see the books go very well together, by the way. And finally, guys, as usual, don't forget that the absolute lifeblood of my channel, the life force of my channel, is your kindness through donations, for which I am always super grateful. You know that nowadays on Patreon, the link is right below if you want to join the community. If you decide to support me, you can look at the link and see what the options are. You don't just support me, which is absolutely crucial to keeping this channel going. I could not do it without you. But you also get access to a Discord server, I was mentioning it earlier, where you interact with me and the others. Bonus videos every 2 weeks, usually in-depth discussions of topics from my books or the mainstream YouTube, and other perks. So check it out. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Bye-bye.